Combat has always been a major part of many popular games. It seems like every AAA game with a story now has some sort of combat system, whether it be simple or not. Heck, even that new LEGO Batman game seems like it has a basically simplified version of the combat in Arkham. I wouldn't know yet, I'd rather waste $70 on other things. And although Sonic hasn't achieved this level of game until very recently, he is no stranger to combat. This style of gameplay has been implemented since Adventure 1 with Knuckles, and well, it's combat, I guess. However, when it comes to Sonic himself, he hasn't really made many major attempts to incorporate actual combat into his existing moveset. And like, why would he need to? As his whole thing is about going fast, why would you want to stop to deal with enemies instead of just plowing through them? And even if, how would a gameplay style that is reliant on many different inputs fit into Sonic's ever-expanding moveset? Surely you'd have to sacrifice something to make this work. Well, a couple games have tried to do just that, with varying degrees of success. Spoiler alert, they're all not very good. So why don't we go through each game with combat for Sonic and take a look at the good, but mostly the bad, of each playstyle. Believe it or not, the first time combat was attempted wasn't in Sonic Unleashed. Instead, the first game to have a separate attack move in Sonic's moveset was in Heroes. And in 06, he can perform basically the exact same move with the green gem, so I'm just gonna bunch them both into one. This tornado attack of sorts allows Sonic to quickly stun enemies by pressing the action button in the air. This in turn lifts said enemy off the ground, where they swirl defenseless for a few seconds. This move can also be used to gain extra height that is stackable with the homing attack. It's also mandatory to use in order to swing along these poles in certain parts of stages. This ability is mostly meant to be paired with another character's attack, like Tails' Thunder Shoot or Knuckles' Fire Dunk to reach the stunned enemy. While not adding much to Sonic's moveset, I feel as if this move is unobtrusive, yet still is able to provide some use in parts of stages to progress even quicker than otherwise. And when paired with a Rocket Excel, it can be used to gain a fair amount of distance and height. Oh, remember when I said that 06 had the same move? Well, I lied. While Sonic can perform an attack that forms a tornado, the way it works is very different from Heroes. The way you activate the tornado attack here is by pressing the right trigger, in air or on the ground, it doesn't matter. And instead of stunning a specific enemy that you lock onto, you genuinely just eviscerate any enemy in your general vicinity. Doesn't matter if said enemy is like 10 feet away from you, when you use this move, they just die. The only problem with this move, I'd say, is that it's a bit too slow and stops you completely with no other way to gain height after performing it. Being slow in Heroes wasn't that huge of a problem, since its gameplay was based around the team mechanic, but it doesn't work as well in the game where speed and platforming are more of the focus. So while flawed, I think both of these attacks work well with Sonic's existing moves, and allow for enemies to defeat it quickly to get back to more fast gameplay. Quick pause, if you've liked this video so far and want to support me in the channel, the best way to do that is to simply like the video and subscribe.
So, back to it.
Now, quite on the contrary of fast gameplay, Sonic's next combat attempt was in Sonic Unleashed, which is probably the most well-known combat system in Sonic. As the Werehog's controls are almost entirely centered around combat, it makes sense why he's so memorable. This playstyle takes place only at night, meaning Sonic Team had basically the entire controller free to play around with new inputs. The X button is now a slash attack, the Y button a heavy attack, the B button a grab, the left bumper a shield, the right trigger a run, and the right bumper a rage mode. Also, this game was the first to give Sonic a double jump in 3D, which is neat. The grab can be used to deal critical damage to enemies through a quick time event, as well as grab onto items, platforms, and certain enemies. The guard can only be used when enough of the shield gauge is filled up, and essentially blocks an incoming attack. Usually, bigger enemies take more off of your shield gauge, so filling it up is important. The Rage mode, or Unleash as this game calls it, basically makes the Werehog better for the duration of the move. During the Unleashed mode, the Werehog has better speed, attack, and durability, and also makes him invincible. This move is useful for taking out either tons of enemies at once, or the guardians that are at the end of every stage. As you progress through the game, you earn skill points to level up the Werehog's strength and combos, as well as the size of his health bar, Unleashed gauge, and shield gauge. In my opinion, the two best upgrades are to the Unleashed gauge and combos. With a better Unleashed gauge, you're able to make quick work of the guardians, so encounters won't feel so difficult. And with more combos, this means that you can be more expressive with your combat style. You can pull off really cool looking moves and make enemy encounters even easier. Because there's so many moves to learn, you could spend hours upon hours trying to master master this combat system, meaning that replayability is guaranteed if you're up for it. A really nice thing about the Werehog's combat is that there's no long animations. You're in control the entire time you input every move, meaning fighting feels very fluid and smooth. Pulling off combos and wiping out enemies in seconds not only looks cool, but also feels great because you know that you were the one to take the time and learn everything. And because the Werehog still has platforming sections, once you get the combat down, stages flow really well and can actually be completed in under 10 minutes if you know what you're doing. However, this combat doesn't come without its issues. While the stages themselves could be shortened by practice, there's no actual way to go fast as the Werehog. Sure, you have the run button, but when compared to daytime Sonic, who goes faster than ever in this game, it's a very steep drop off in speed that could definitely feel slow at times. The other main problem lies in the control scheme. This entire combat system takes up all of the inputs on the controller. This means that there's no room to put any trademark Sonic moves like the homing attack or stomp. This is definitely a problem for most people, as it basically feels like an entirely different game to switch over to after some of the most exhilarating Sonic gameplay at that point. Also, to most players, these stages will be very long, which doesn't exactly encourage them to come back to the Werehog and learn to make the experience more fun when they could be boosting through stages as modern Sonic instead. Overall, I think the Werehog can be some great fun when you take the time to learn the combat. However, this complex fighting system comes at the cost of all of your speed, which for most players is too much of an ask for a Sonic game. Now, when writing down the games I'd talk about, I completely forgot about Sonic and the Black Knight, mostly because I haven't played it yet. So I can't really give my personal opinion on it, nor can I even explain the system in detail, so I basically have to skip this game. I could try to pick out moves from a gameplay video, except for the fact that this was the best video I can find when looking for combat footage. Safe to say I'm not analyzing anything. The one thing I can say though is that this combat looks like it flows very well with your actual speed, and even looks like certain moves that damage enemies can make you go even faster. Now, I'm not sure how this actually controls on the Wii, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's not the easiest thing ever. But whatever, this still looks awesome. Now, Sonic would kind of take a break from combat after these last couple of games received public backlash. The implementation of combat wouldn't actually appear again until Sonic Lost World. Specifically, the 3DS version that nobody played. Now, this combat mostly functions like Heroes in 06, with there only really being one extra move to deal with enemies. I don't even know what this move is called because not even the Sonic Wiki knows about it. I swear I'm not crazy, I was just playing this game. It looks like Sonic fires wind of some sort at enemies, so I'll just call it the Wind Sweep. With the Wind Sweep, you can stun enemies and even get rid of parts of enemies that would have hurt you otherwise, like the spiky ball enemy that's apparently called an Orbinaut. But yeah, that's literally the only use it has, but I will admit that it's pretty fun to use. Oh, there's also the charge homing attack too. If you stand close to an enemy, the homing reticle around them will grow larger the longer you wait. If all three circles appear, Sonic does more damage to the enemy than he would have if you had a homing attack normally. This combat is fine, I guess. I like how simple it is, as this game is more centered around the parkour mechanic than anything, but I don't like how you have to wait to homing attack if you want to do more damage. I feel like there's better ways to implement a homing attack with varying damage levels. Maybe the higher you attack from relative to an enemy, the more damage it does, and vice versa for less damage. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sonic's most recent attempt at combat was, of course, in Sonic Frontiers. This game set out to have a playstyle that rivaled Unleashed, while still having room for more traditional Sonic gameplay. Did it accomplish this? Yeah, no, I don't know, kinda. Frontiers has a skill tree that you can progress with XP that can be found in the open world, with some moves being locked until you reach a certain point in the story. Most of this skill tree is centered around combat, but there are some moves like the side loop and air trick that can be used outside of enemy encounters. Now, let's get the good stuff out of the way. This combat looks amazing, no doubt about it. Every move has an incredible animation that utilizes Sonic's restrictive model in this game to the best of its ability. Sonic is so stylized in this combat, and the way he stretches and squashes his limbs looks exactly how a cartoonish blue hedgehog should. Too bad the rest of the art style of this game doesn't complement it. All of these moves are also very easy to pull off, usually only requiring 2 or less inputs before said move is executed. This combat also flows really well with regular gameplay, and most of your moves, such as the boost and stomp, are still able to be used while locked in this game's combat mode. Basically, whenever you start an encounter, your inputs can now be used towards combat moves. This prevents moves being executed in regular free-roam gameplay, which is a smart but simple solution. But unfortunately, the positives mostly end there. I think the biggest problem with Frontiers' combat is that it's far too automated. Once you put in the inputs, all you do is watch Sonic do his cool and flashy animation and wait until you can actually play the game again. This looks cool, sure, but it doesn't feel cool because you didn't actually do it. In Unleashed, your actual inputs were longer than the attack animation, but in Frontiers, it's the exact opposite, and it's not even close. You also can't chain together attacks that well here. After you attack, you kind of reset and end up a few feet away from the enemy you're fighting. This means that the only real way to continue a combo in a way that feels smooth is by using the stomp move. And because of these long animations and unchainable attacks, Frontiers severely lacks the expression that Unleashed had. But even if you could chain together moves more smoothly, there's not many to choose from. If we're counting actual combat skills, there's only 12 of these in the skill tree. This may seem like a decent amount, but when you take a look at the Werehog, these are like scraps. This leads to combat that feels kind of samey most of the time, especially since the most efficient way to deal with enemies is to use the stomp attack along with that stupid projectile move. You know the one I'm talking about. The combat is also far too easy, even in the last island, because of how easy it is to dodge an enemy's attacks. The few times that an enemy actually catches you off guard aren't even tough to react to. All you have to do is hold the parry and you'll be fine. Speaking of the parry, this thing is awful. There's no limit to how long you can hold it, which can be funny if you just decide to float, but it also makes combat a breeze. When you eventually block an attack, you can just finish an enemy off like the Spider-Man games, and it feels really cheap. Not to mention that the combat in general can feel very janky at times, especially when they try to force you to parry properly in Final Horizon. Somehow this is even worse than the parry in the main game, because at least that version was intentional. The perfect parry feels awful to use, mostly because it takes so long to actually bring up your guard. Also, some moves just activate when you don't want them to. Like when you're boosting in the air and try to homing attack an enemy, but instead it brings up this sphere launch move. Like, no, I wanted to homing attack, not be the ball master. Also, why is there an auto combo option? The combat is easy enough as it is. Why would I need Sonic to play the game for me? This reminds me of that one interview.
When I play Sonic the Hedgehog, he doesn't have free will because I'm controlling him. But if I don't have free will either, is Sonic controlling me? Or is the universe playing Sonic the Hedgehog through my body?
So, what have we learned? Well, mostly that Sonic and combat don't work that well. If a more complex combat system is implemented into a Sonic game, it's always at the expense of something, whether that be speed or expression. So, what's a good solution? Well, there's a couple. One, just do what Lost World 3DS did with the Wind Slice move and have combat be very minimal in order to retain the actual speed. Or, if a more complex system is to be implemented, have there be a dedicated combat mode with many attacks that can be chained and executed very smoothly. Hopefully Frontiers 2 does that, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe, and maybe even comment your thoughts on Sonic combat to push this video out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. And of course, I'll see you all next week.